Formalized schooling does us a really big disservice. It teaches us that like making mistakes is wrong and that cooperating is cheating, which is like dumb. A lot of people say that they need more confidence to do things, but I always ask them, like, what do you think that word means? And it actually comes from like a Latin derivative, and in Spanish, confianza means to trust. But the question is, who are you trusting? And you're really trusting yourself. And that's the formula for the age of the future. They'll be a rock star salesperson, they'll understand media, they will think like an owner, and they'll be vertically integrated.
So usually the gentleman next to me is the one giving the interview. And he's generally interviewing agents and other people who are high achievers. But today I wanted to have the opportunity to interview him.
Cool.
And for everyone watching, so that you could see what would be the perfect agent. What do I need to do more deals? Who do I need to become to be this person? So I wanted to pick the brain of the coach himself. So we often hear coaches say, I wish I had 10 of Tom Brady, or I wish I had this, I wish I had that. But sometimes players, you don't always know who you need to be for your coach. So that's what I'd like to do today, to interview the coach.
Cool, let's do it.
So Aaron, how many people have you coached in your career?
Oh gosh, like hundreds, if not like 1,000.
Really?
Yeah.
And
whether it's like, in the physical form or in the digital form.
How long have you owned your coaching company?
Over a decade.
So over 10 years?
Yeah.
And of all of the agents that you've coached, how many of them have been quote unquote high achievers, someone who does over $500,000 or more a year?
Probably 10-15%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at least 15 of those individuals? Or?
Yeah, and I'm thinking like $1 million a year or more.
Okay.
But the individuals that I work with, like in a one-on-one capacity, almost all of them fit that criteria.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to ask you, because you seem like a credible source.
Sure.
All the agents that you've coached, the ones who do really well, what are some things that they have in common?
Yeah, so one of them is that they're extremely coachable. So meaning that when we talk about something, as we're talking about it, they're online implementing it, or you know what I mean?
Right.
Or the next time we hop on a call, it's already been done. So that's one of the key characteristics, is that they have a penchant towards action. I think their urgency is very high, and as such, there's less resistance to what it is that we're talking about. I find that sometimes people slow themselves down because as a result of that, but the ones who get really favorable outcomes very quickly, they just implement right away.
So of your clients who are maybe more analytical or slower to implement, are you seeing this with those folks as well?
Yeah, so those folks, their tendency is to slow things down. Mm-hmm. Their tendency is to resist until they perhaps either fully understand it. But I think what's interesting, whether it's analytical or just in general, the underlying because we think that we're thinking beings that feel when we're really feeling beings that think. So the underlying kind of emotion is actually fear, just like being afraid to take action.
Okay.
So I was explaining to somebody, because we've worked together for a while, I was like, yeah, one of Jessica's superpowers is just like, she's just not afraid to do things. And even if you mess it up, or like it's not what you thought it would be, or the slide deck doesn't work, or something happens.
Or we didn't turn the camera on during the podcast.
Right, which I know happened to you before. So you just have a penchant for action.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's underneath, you're just not like, as you do more, you don't become fearless, you just fear less. Mm-hmm. So I think independent of somebody, analyticals, they have a higher propensity to like kind of want to think things through. But it's really, I think all of us, independent of personality profiles and styles, it's really the emotion of fear that keeps us stuck, or uncertainty, or a lack of trust in ourselves that I'll figure it out.
So all of your high performers, they maybe do have that fear, but they do it anyway.
Yeah, and they also, it's either they have the fear, they do it anyway, or it becomes a loop because they've done it in the past, they trust themselves more, that, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'll figure it out.
And they just keep trying.
Yeah, and then they just keep doing it, and then really what they're doing, because, I'll be in a room and a lot of people say that they need more confidence to do things. But I always ask them, like, what do you think that word means? And they'll give me these very interesting answers, And it actually comes from like a Latin derivative, and in Spanish, confianza means to trust. But the question is, who are you trusting? And you're really trusting yourself. So when you see somebody that's confident, what you're really saying is, man, they trust themselves a lot.
Because they show up for themselves.
Yeah, and they trust in their ability to figure stuff out, if that makes sense. So I think formalized schooling does us a really big disservice. It teaches us that like making mistakes is wrong, and that cooperating is cheating, which is like dumb because that's not the way it works in the world. And really, failing is how you learn, and how you cultivate trust in yourself.
So if you're an agent, you're watching this, what did he just say? Be coachable.
Yeah.
Be quick to act. And even though you might have fear, do it anyway.
Do it anyway. Yeah, and surround yourself with people that encourage you to do that, because 65% of us live in families that live paycheck to paycheck. That was my experience. And as a result, you'll hear things like, hey, be careful, Jessica. Like, that's a little risky, or right?
Yeah.
So surrounding yourself with people that are encouraging you to step into things that they know to be helpful to you. So it's figuring out, like finding a guide. I don't even like the word coach, but like a guide who's just a little bit further down the path, knowing that they're not going to tell you anything that's not in your best interest. And then when they suggest something to you that's uncomfortable, like having an environment where not only the guide, but also people in your kind of circle, they support you and encourage you and cheerlead you to try to do things that are uncomfortable.
So get a good support system around you as well.
Yeah. And that starts with family, but then it can become like, like an organization or whatever, like we're building.
So having coached so many agents and seeing so many people achieve, I'm sure you've also seen some people decide that this industry wasn't for them, or, maybe the opposite. What are some of the common themes in agents that don't work out?
Yeah, so what I've seen happen more often than not is not just ones that like where they decide this isn't for them, because usually by the time, like when I'm working with them, they're producing. You can only behave in accordance with the way you see yourself. And money has an addictive quality, and because of it, we get addicted to the way that we receive it. So as such, those agents who fade away or kind of plateau, they do so because they've basically plateaued in learning. You know what I mean?
They think they know everything.
They think they know everything, or they're really afraid underneath to learn something new.
Okay.
And they don't see themselves as somebody who does more. So they stay plateaued. Like, I meet agents, they've been doing like the same amount of deals, same income for like 5-10 years. And it's just because it's their identity, it's the way they see themselves. And plus they're not learning anything new. So they'll keep going back to the well of maybe where they get information, and keep going back, but they're not learning anything new, and then they don't grow, and they wonder why.
So if you want to stay in this industry, learn new things is what you're saying.
Yeah, you have to stack skills. So like, in other words, I've been stacking skills for almost 2 decades. So first I learned the skill of what to say and how to say it. And that allowed me to list, 100 homes a year, 10 years in a row, do 200 deals a year twice. But then I learned the skill of the systems that are required in order to do that level of production consistently, right? And SOPs and CRMs and all that stuff, and listing coordinators, transaction coordinators. And more recently, I stacked the skill of media. When we first met, like, my media was my wife posting pictures of our kids. So I learned that skill. And then I also learned the skill of attraction. And so it's just continuing to stack skills, and as you do that, you just make yourself more valuable. So, I think, for example, if we bring that back to agents, the loudest voices, or the kind of gurus in our space, they talk about the 4 horsemen: expireds, cancels, for sale by owners, just listed, just solds. And they just recycle them every year, every month, based on the season or the flavor of the month, right?
Which will get you to...
It'll get you to some transactions. The challenge is, though,
it's the foundation.
Yeah, it's the foundation. If you stop there, if you don't learn new lead sources. I mean, probate for me took me from 100 to 200. It was a new thing, but I had to learn it. It was new, it was uncomfortable. I didn't know. I had to drop down into like unconsciously incompetent, where I didn't know what I didn't know. But then, 5 years later, I'm an expert. And we're doing 60 of those a year, or whatever it was. Same thing with media, same thing with like attraction. So
We see that in our prospecting group. A few of the gentlemen that you've coached are in there, like Mark Ramey.
yeah,
And while some of the agents are calling expireds, right, one of the four horsemen, he's already taken his third appointment in the
with
time
probate.
that we've just connected with like
Yep.
wrong numbers.
Yep.
So it's been interesting to watch what you're saying firsthand and how those skills can really run circles around what other people are doing.
That's right. And now we're starting to see, because we are helping agents to understand that the commission sometimes can be a mental barrier to this whole other side of real estate, like creative. You know, we had Pace Morby at our summit, and, you know, sub two and wholesaling and all this other stuff. Jose, he talked about it and how he's helping so many clients, and he's providing more options, which means he's adding more value, and as such, he's winning more, because whoever adds more value wins. So yeah, I mean, we're only as good as the data that we're taking in. And just because data, you know, again, it can get me like to a particular place, but if you want to keep growing and evolving, I got to upgrade the data.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So learn new skills.
Yep.
And if you're questioning whether or not you're meant for this industry, take a look at where you're getting your information from. It might be time to seek out a new guide to learn a new skill. Now, if you were to build an agent today, Aaron,
Yeah.
what would that agent, what skills would they have? What mindset would they have?
good.
What would they do?
Yeah, so I believe the agent of the future will have the following skill sets. One is they will be a rock star salesperson. So they'll know what to say and how to say it. They'll be able to prospect, lead, follow up, go on appointments, negotiate deals. Because eventually, I don't care how you get leads, you got to talk to somebody. The second thing they're going to really understand very well is they'll understand media very well. Because being known as the hyperlocal expert, the guide to help people to solve their problems, will become a lead generator over time, and there's no referral fees attached to it. So they'll understand that very, very well. The third thing is a mindset, is they will think like an owner, not like an agent, right? So thinking to themselves like, hey, how am I selling something or am I building something? Those are different ways of thinking. And then the third thing is that they'll have multiple different ways to get compensated. So not only commissions, but they'll make money perhaps with some of that creative stuff. They'll also make money because the platform that they're with gives them equity, maybe a rev share opportunity, and that'll make up for any compression in commissions. Because what we see happening on the buyer side now, because of, you know, the changes with commissions, that's becoming more variable and market driven. So in other words, if there's a listing, there's 10 offers on the property, the seller's going to choose the best price, the best terms, and the best commission. I've already seen that happen with coaching clients. So being vertically integrated and having multiple different ways of making money will insulate you from that. And that's the formula for the agent of the future. They'll be a rock star salesperson, they'll understand media, they will think like an owner, and they'll be vertically integrated.
And they will they be doing, so I see a lot of people putting out courses, trying to be, or not trying to be, but being coaches. They kind of look a little bit like a dancing bear sometimes.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I think you have to be very clear on what you want. I think for most people that are smart, hardworking, and ambitious, the hard thing is not getting what you want, it's deciding what you want. Most people don't really think about that, and most people just do things because they're money grabs.
True.
So like, oh yeah, I can make a little money coaching, sure, I'll do that. Oh yeah, I can do this, and it's just a money grab. But there's no like long-term vision or goal or objective, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not like really opposed to that. I just know, having been somebody that sold real estate in high volume for a long time, if you're committed to doing that, you really can't do anything else. Like, it's everything: blood, sweat, tears, time, energy, effort. Like,
There's no leverage in it.
yeah, there's no leverage in it. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that like creating courses or that sort of thing is bad. The marketplace will tell you if it's valuable or not. Because if it's not valuable, you won't sell anything.
So it sounds like to me you're thinking more long term, and the 4 skills that an agent should really invest their time in is becoming the best salesperson they can become.
Yes, that's worth stacking time on top of.
And so that, what does that mean specifically?
Yeah, so that means in terms of like a blueprint, that means being in any sales situation and never being uncomfortable.
So learning what to say and how to say
What's
it.
saying how to say it. So learning how to set appointments with various different lead sources, whether it's, you know, expireds for sale by owners, but also probates, cash offers, like, right? Being able to pre-qualify multiple different lead sources, being able to present, being able to handle objections and close, and then if it's a listing, get a price adjustment. Those are the conversations that you have to master.
So become a rock star at all of those skills.
Yeah, which if you have a blueprint, which is just role play twice a day, 6 days a week, chant maybe, hand write out stuff. If you do that for like a year or two, you'll be a rock star at it because you're putting in way more time than most people do at all.
And you also mentioned leveraging attention and social media. Can you describe what that successful agent who's bringing in leads for themselves, what are they doing different?
Yeah, so what they're doing different is they're doing story branded content, which is a wonderful book by a guy named Donald Miller. And he basically points out that we've been telling stories for thousands of years. It's the only thing that has the capacity to hold human attention for long periods of time. And because of that, we have best practices, right? So in every story, every book, every movie, there's a hero who has a problem that they can't solve themselves, otherwise there's no story. They meet a guide. The guide gives them a plan, calls them to action, because heroes need to be called to action. They don't take action on their own accord. Then the hero uses the plan, they get what they want, they avoid what they don't want. That's every story. So like Harry Potter is the hero, Dumbledore is the guide. Katniss Everdeen in Hunger Games is the hero, Hamish is the guide, right? Luke Skywalker is the hero, Obi-Wan's the guide. Like, it's everything. And if you look at those three characters, the villain, the hero, and the guide, the question is, who's the weakest character? It's the villain, but who's the second weakest character? The hero.
The hero.
Harry doesn't know magic, Harry Potter. He doesn't know he's the best wizard. He makes mistakes all the time. The strongest character in the whole story is the guide, Dumbledore, or Obi-Wan. So most people, most agents, and just people in general, they're all doing media wrong because they're making themselves the hero, right? Showing a picture of you, what you're eating, you're the hero. You working out, you're the hero. You on vacation, you're the hero. They're not positioning themselves as a guide to help heroes solve their problems. And we're all consider ourselves heroes in our own story. We're all looking for heroes to solve our problems. Financial problems, real estate problems, relationship problems, spiritual problems, money problems, yeah? So they understand that very well, and they create story-branded content. They also understand the difference between the social and the interest graph. So most people are doing social graph, which is like when Facebook first came out, it was on their algorithm was on the social graph where they would show you what your friends were doing. And then TikTok comes around and theirs is on the interest graph. Shows you what you're interested in. And that's more powerful because what me and you thought was interesting 10 years ago is different what we think is interesting today. So the algorithm can change with you, and as such, it can keep you for a lifetime. So as a result, Meta and YouTube came up with Reels and Shorts. And now everything is on the interest graph, but everybody else is still doing it on the social graph. So like an agent, we just did a meeting here, and she's like, hey, how could I do this differently? She had her like closing with a little key. And I'm like, well, that's dumb. It doesn't position you as a guide. You're the hero. Like, look at me. I'm so special. It doesn't help anybody solve their problems.
Yeah.
So she's like, how can I do this differently? I'm like, well, is this a seller? She's like, yeah. I'm like, well, what was their problem? They're like, they were on the market for 180 days, didn't sell. Okay. So then show a picture of the house. You with a green screen, like you can be over it or talk behind it. Hey, here's a home that we sold off 1265 Banana Street. Or this seller had a problem.
This is good.
Right? They were on the market for 180 days, didn't sell. They wanted to move. And the move was important to them and they were feeling like they had to give up on their dream. I met them. Here's a 3-step plan that we use. 1, 2, and 3. Here's them, a picture of them moving, right? Getting what they want, avoiding what they don't want. So if you want to have a confidential conversation about your home, DM me the word sell. I was like, isn't that better? And she was like, oh my God, it's like 10 times better. I'm like, yeah. Do you see? So
yes.
I think that we all understand that media is important. There's no strategy behind it. So as a result, we're all lazy. We do what everybody else does. We're just copying.
Copying, yeah.
And we're doing it on the social graph, and we're making ourselves heroes.
So your AI agent, right? What are we going to call this person?
What do you mean?
We're our agent of the future that we're building right now.
I don't know.
Let's give him a name.
Let's give her a name.
Let's give her a name.
I don't know. Sally.
Sally. Okay, yeah. So Sally became a rock star agent because she role played twice a day.
Yep.
Learned what to say and how to say it. Mm-hmm. And she stacked on a skill of probate.
Yeah.
So Sally just closes a deal. Now she's learning media and attention.
Stacking that skill.
Yep. So she has all those things, right? She called a probate, found out that the family needed help because they already moved to Connecticut. The house is in Florida. Sally helps them to clear out the house, get top dollar. They're excited. Sally has them take a video saying, thank you so much. You helped us out of this situation. And she talks about how it benefited the client. So now more people who have that type of property reach out to Sally without her having a cold call.
That's right. So, and yeah, I think for many people, they don't realize that it actually, if you do story branded content and you do like hook message with a call to action, it is prospecting. We've been told for a long time that it's not, but it is. And inputs and outputs are just associated. So when I make one call, I can only talk to one person. But if I shoot a video, I can talk to 100 people. I can talk to 1,000 people. I can talk to 1 million people. We've had some videos like 1 million people. So yeah, it's just they'll understand that and they won't be like adverse to it.
So the next skill that you said they would have is leadership and understanding this is a business.
Yeah, like the difference, it's really like a mental map. Am I selling something or am I building something? Because unfortunately, traditional success in this business is working like 70, 80 hours a week. And we put people on panels and we talk about top line revenue, but we never talk about profitability. We never talk about what's happening in their personal life.
Yeah.
We never talk about, because most people are like a public success, but a private mess. So, but if I'm just selling something, agents are notorious, just like doctors or accountants or attorneys who make a lot of money, where their lifestyle increases with their income. And then they're just selling something. They're not building something. They're not building something for the future. So they'll just think differently.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So they'll think about building a business versus just making money and spending it.
Yeah, instead of like real estate as a cash register or a cash grab where I rip out as much as I can to fund my lifestyle, it's like, no. How could I invest in systems? How can I invest in staff? How can I invest in CRMs? How can I invest in media? So that way I have a business.
So they become a business owner. And then the fourth thing you said that the agent of the future that Sally, we're building her, would be?
She would be vertically integrated. So in other words, she'd have multiple different ways of getting compensated, not just commissions.
Okay.
So she can do the commission thing, but then maybe because she does cash offers or has a cash offer program, maybe she does some wholesaling, maybe she does some sub two. So it's multiple revenue sources. She'll also be on a platform like EXP that provide her stock, right? Equity, because you never get rich trading time for money. You must own equity in something. And then, they have a revenue share component or an opportunity, which to me is superior to like a team because you get the leverage of labor without the management of labor and you get the leverage of labor without the capital requirements of labor. Instead of building a team that does like a bunch of unit, like to give you an example, like I personally, most homes I ever sold had two buyer's agents on the team. They did like 30 deals. I did like 100 and whatever it was, 80, something like that. No, less than that, like 160 of them. We did 202 deals, whatever that is mathematically. So, but the organization last year did 1,600 units.
It's crazy.
So you can make up for with leverage what you lack in ability.
We did 246. I've never done that.
That's
much
wild,
in my
right?
career.
You've never done that before. So, they'll understand that. And they'll be vertically integrated. Instead of being like only compensated one way, they'll have multiple different ways to be compensated.
So if you want to become Sally, what would be the best way for future Sally to connect with you?
Yeah, so what I would propose is, whether it's me or Jess or whoever, find a guide. Somebody who's just a little bit further down the path. And make sure that they're believable, because we live in a world where you don't have to be competent to be famous. So make sure that they've produced the outcome that you wish to produce consistently over an extended period of time. Watch their content, make sure that like, hey, there's substance here, like it's actually helpful. If you can take somebody's content and go make money with it, that's a good indicator, right? So find somebody that's believable, a guide, stack skills on top of, or stack time on top of learning the skill of what to say and how to say it, whether that's with us or with somebody else, but like learn that skill, right? Get into role play groups, be committed to it. It's a craft, no different than playing the violin or, using a scalpel, right? And we live in an economic society, so those people that are really good at selling, they get disproportionately rewarded for their efforts, right? So treat it as such. And then in terms of the media piece, again, find somebody that's believable so that you can stack time on top of that skill. Put time, energy, and resources behind it, because the barrier to entry now costs a certain amount, but 5 years from now it'll be more. So you just have to understand like it's a commitment. And if it's not worth doing for a decade, it's not worth doing for a day. You know what I mean? Like it's a long-term thing. And then, in terms of like thinking like an owner, get in rooms where people are owners. If you're in rooms with people that are technicians, they think like technicians. You know what I mean? They're just salespeople. They're not building something. They're just selling something. So get in rooms with people that are building something because the thinking's different, the conversations are different. And then with the last one, in terms of vertically integrated, like a platform. I personally think, and as do you, that EXP is a fantastic platform. But a platform that gives you multiple different ways to get compensated. And then when it comes down to that, in terms of choosing platforms, it's really about leadership. So, making sure that whoever you're interested in partnering with actually has value to give. It's not just hype and marketing.
Super helpful. Thank you so much, Aaron. Any last thoughts for, common mistakes you see agents making that you wish you could shake them and say, don't do that?
Yeah, I think it's just recognizing that, I don't know any other, I'm sure there are, but like industries where with such a low barrier to entry, you have the capacity to really change your family tree for the rest of their life. It's unbelievable, right? So, I think this mindset of I have to do this or I have to do that. You don't have to do anything. I get to do it. And if you treat it like a profession, it will legitimately, give you way more than you need and probably your children's need. So, if we could be of help or assistance, reach out to us. We look forward to the opportunity.
Thank you, Uncle A.
Appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure.
Always.